And we are live. What's going on, YouTube Live? It's your boy, Billy Rowe. Today is Tuesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. And if it is a Tuesday, you should already know what time it is. It's time for a first row Intersation. Tonight's topic is going to be compassion fatigue with the fan favorite. I call him Cousin Mo. He calls me Cousin Rowe. Cousin Moses Jenkins. Could you say hello to the people, please, Cousin Mo?
Oh, yes, sir. Hello, hello. It's your guy, Mr. Moses Jenkins Morehouse, man. I am a proud father, proud husband, and I'm still on my journey. So glad that y'all can join with us, man. Cousin Rowe, what's good, man? I see you still doing all them push-ups, brother.
Still, hey, no, I just got back to the gym. Two and a half weeks I was out of the gym. I just got back, and as soon as I went back, I tweaked my lower back. So we may not be back again for a little bit, but that's all right. I'm working on it. I still got Intersations to do and stuff.
Yes,
but so tonight's topic is, again, compassion fatigue. For those who are new to the Intersation concept, I always like to explain what I mean by Intersations. So Intersations is simply when you take interview and conversation. When you merge those two together, you get Intersations. So in my life, I'm very, very, very fortunate to have a robust network of friends, family, strangers, acquaintances, coworkers, all kinds of things, all kinds of people that I speak to and I talk to on a regular basis. However, our conversations tend to go from the surface level of how is your day, what's the weather like, blah, 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 into much more deep and meaningful things like what does that mean to you? Why do you think that way? And things that will inspire and provoke growth in our life. So because those conversations go deep, what Intersations is a way for me to literally open a lens into those conversations so that you, the viewer, can benefit by interacting, engaging, asking questions, giving comments, sharing nuggets, but also you can benefit from the growth of the conversation. So though tonight you will see Moses and I going back and forth visually in communication with one another, I want you to understand that this is an open group conversation. Feel free to jump in where you feel like you can contribute and help shape and mold the interactiveness of this discussion. So that's what an Intersation is. That's what we expect of you if you're on the first row tuning in. For all you silent viewers out there that send me text messages and direct messages later, but don't ever say anything live, I'm talking to you tonight. But tonight's topic being about compassion fatigue, I feel like this is going to be a really powerful Intersation. So if you're watching live, please, please, please contribute to the live conversation. If you're watching via the replay, make sure you take a moment to share this conversation with somebody. I see that we already got a couple people in the chat. We got Brother Matthew Thomas in the chat. At least he's not being silent. For anybody else who might be being silent, make sure you chime in and say hello, at least to the chat, so we know that you're here. But with that, let's jump into tonight's topic. I'm going to tell you right now, up front and foremost, we're probably going to be about an hour and a half because this conversation is planned to go deep. So I hope you guys can tune in for the whole thing, but if not, catch the rest on the replay. With that being said, Cousin Mo, you already introduced yourself as the Morehouse man, your guy. However, tell people who may not be familiar with you yet, this might be your last introduction, so make it the best introduction you can, because after this, I'm just going to assume if they've seen a first row anything, they know who Cousin Moses Jenkins is. Go ahead, shoot and introduce yourself, cousin.
Moses Jenkins. I also like to throw in that I'm a veteran, but I am a co-contributor to the first row. These conversations, these Intersations, these interviews, bring them all together and let's get past that first layer into that second and third layer. Let's get to the origin of why things happen. Let's get to the root causes. Let's get to the things that really drive us a little bit crazy so that we can learn and grow together. We're on a journey. We want to have dialogues that are real, that are authentic, that highlight solutions. We want to look past the things that we may have experienced only to see that we are still there a little bit, but then look towards the future where we want to see ourselves and find ourselves acknowledging ourselves there too. How can we be in both places at the same time, you ask? It's through dialogue. That's the only space where we can really exist, where we can look back or look past what we've been through, connect it to where we're at, still see our future and be in all three places at the same time. So if we're still daring to dream together, then I think we can grow together. My name is Moses. I'm a part of the first row as a co-contributor here tonight. We want to bring you a meaningful topic. I hope it's something that you've observed in someone else. But if you felt it yourself, just say ouch in the chat room. Emotion emotional fatigue. Let's get into it, Cousin Ro.
Man, hey, let's see. I told him making his best introduction. Look at that boy out there got talent. With that, Cousin Mo, I mean, I couldn't introduce you any better myself, so I appreciate it. Yes, co-contributor, definitely co-creator on the first row, and soon to be creator, no co in front of it eventually.
Absolutely.
Speaking those things into existence. So tonight's topic, compassion fatigue. Let's jump right into it. As always, with every Intersation, Cousin Mo, you're not new to the game. The very first question I like to ask about in an Intersation is, what does the topic of compassion fatigue mean to you?
So this one is to the heart of a lot of our struggles. I threw in the veteran last to add some significance. There is a point that we experience enough is enough, whether it's internally in ourselves, we need that internal breaking point, whether it's in the relationships that we have with another, there's that breaking point. Even sometimes it's in the things that you're most passionate about. So if there's a point where you've given about as much as you can give and you find yourself on the verge of going in another direction, that's emotional fatigue. There's a lot of symptoms. There's a lot of signs. There's causes. There's things that happen. There's, the triggers, whichever words you use. But it's acknowledging when you get to that point where you're like, I'm giving it as much as I can. And now you're trying to figure out what's next. It's even that point when fatigue kicks in, really, is when you start feeling a little bit drained, when you start having those thoughts. I think many of us have been there. If you've ever tried to accomplish something super significant that really took a lot of effort, Cousin Ro, to try to make this thing happen, and you're pouring into it, and then it's like you're right there. It's not there yet, and you're almost at that point of like, that's where I like to look at it. That's emotional fatigue right there. Let's get into some of the deeper details though. But that's what it means to me, is getting to that point right there.
All right, right to the edge.
Right there.
Me, I'm gonna leave it there. I keep telling people I don't want no copyright infringement. Anyway, it's funny because that is exactly what compassion fatigue means to me. And actually, I remember when this term came up. It came up when we were actually doing our Intersation on are you being used? And we talked about that. Or I'll take that back. We didn't talk about that. We talked about it because you brought it up. But you brought up that language of compassion fatigue, being in that space where you're emotionally, mentally drained and really don't have the wherewithal in order to engage with people in a healthy manner. So if I was to make it brief and direct, that's what it would be. The only other thing I would add is that the word compassion, I was actually in creating the content, looking up, okay, so what does compassion mean? And not only is it, why is it compassion? Why is it not compassion, like with passion? But really what it is, it's a co-suffering, a co-sharing of an experience with another individual. And it's really I think the definition said like it's the precursor to empathy and sympathy. So compassion, like when you look at that from that perspective, and then you add fatigue at the end of that, where you're getting ready to reach exhaustion, burnout, and compassion failure, that's a dangerous place to be with human interaction. So I'm really, like I said, looking forward to tonight's conversation. So let's jump into something a little more deeper, a little more meaningful, so we can start digging to the root.
Absolutely.
So my next question to you is when it comes to compassion fatigue, how important is our overall ability to be compassionate with others?
I mean, I love the human element in that question right there. We're in a competitive society, right? Capitalism drives us. It's about the next job, the next promotion. It's about having a sustainable family. It's about love. It's about all of these things at once. I'll give an analogy. I did a conversation with my wife the other day, and significant question was, how much time do you actually invest? What percentage of your time? Break down your time, your day, into 100% of your day is 24 hours. And it's just about 5% or less that we actually spend together. Compassion is that 5% of the time that you spend. What does it actually mean? Is it intimate? Is it deeper? Is it anything more than what you've spent in that 95% when you could have been sleeping, when you could have been working and just establishing another paycheck or some more money to pay the bills, when you could have been doing anything else? You had that time with that person. Compassion is at that point of being able to recognize the humanness in each other. What do we really want? That sense of belonging, that sense of acceptance, the execution of that, right? So it's not just the wanting it, but the actually being that person, being intimate, being affectionate, being in those moments. Compassion is caring. And so why is it important to me? Because there are so many other things in this world that really don't matter, Cousin Ro. But the one thing that people do want to know is that you care. And if 95% of your time you spend on things that you're not caring about, whenever you do have your 10 minutes here, your 20 minutes there, if you can spend any of those just showing somebody and letting somebody know and letting them feel your compassion or feel that they are cared for, I think it goes a long way in this society.
And you know, that care, it really resonates with me. But I wrote a question here when you said how we execute. I think even when you say the word care, it is how do you execute that? And how do you execute within that 5%? Man, like I even think just as far as like today and walking into the house, interacting with my son, instead of giving that care where I'm like, hey, I'm giving you nurture because I'm helping you create this manhood or understand manhood. How could I have better executed the care by simply maybe asking, like, how was your day today? What did you do today? What did you learn today? Those simple things that create care when we've both been off in our own directions for the majority of the day. Probably by the time I get done with Intersations, he'll be asleep. So how do I execute that care better? Man, here we go. Here we
already
go. We ain't even 3 questions in. But I like the breakdown also because, you know, first row is always about tools. I like the breakdown of the percentage of the day. And maybe that's the analytical brain that I have. But when you start looking at 100% of the day and you do driving, eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, and all these other things, you start finding that the majority of your percentage of your day is allocated to things that I don't want to say that you don't care about, but things that may be less important than the people that are important in your life. And so having that breakdown, I might have to create a tool that I could do that with to allocate time more efficiently to the things that are important, whether that be first row or family. I like that. So you got something going here.
It was life-changing for my family just having it, because it was like, you really don't think about it, but that 5%, what does that turn into in a matter of time? And you're like, well, wow, we brushed our teeth together. That was 5 more minutes we could have added. When you were doing your hair, I could have just stayed in the bathroom with you, and you know, I didn't need to do anything but just be there with you. When we were on our ride this morning, I know you were focused on the road. You know, me and my wife, we carpool, but that was time for a conversation. You know, like there's often times that we have that we're not making the best of. So executing your care is going to be important, right? You were 6 feet away from me in our bedroom, and at that time you could have hit me with a sock, and that would have been executing care.
Just getting a little bit of extra attention before we depart ways from each other. I understand that. So let's move into the next question, because compassion is intertwined in so many different areas of our life. We can go left, right, and who knows, based on the questions that come from the live chat, we might end up somewhere upside down. It doesn't matter to me tonight. But what are the triggers and or the areas in life that actually may cause us to experience compassion fatigue or get to it at an accelerated rate?
All right, so you know the disclaimer, everybody got their own individual circumstances, but there's some similarities, some drawbacks that we can draw some generalizations, right? So what are you concerned about? What are your deepest fears? What is it that you would like to accomplish? Your level of achievement that you would like to attain? What's standing in your way? How dedicated are you towards getting those? As deep as your desire is to achieve a thing, that is your trigger. Is competitive or protective as you are of your things that you truly value and love, those could be your triggers. Because when I look at it, fatigue, okay, just like when we were talking percentages, fatigue starts at a spot. So all of this passion is the buildup and everything. And so you can get to the crescendo. And then once you start that, right to that point is when the fatigue starts setting in. It might be only 1% fatigue, but right there is where you're carrying, and all the things that you've invested in are starting to surface with some emotion. So what happens to be that trigger? It could be anything. It could be life experience. It could be road rage. It could be, let me give you an example. I am very passionate about the African-American community, in particular, Del Paso Heights, where I was raised. Being there so long, you can start seeing, well, what is really holding us back is there's not really jobs there. The education that was there, it was enough to be taken advantage of, but did it really prepare you? Did we have enough dads in the community to look out for us and to protect us? There's so many things that are thrown at us that your care can be sapped out going to some of the churches. And right, so you have the deacons, you have the deaconess, you have the mother's board, you have the pastor, you have everybody here who's a part of a broader support network, but just going and going and going and praying and praying and praying, and you believing and believing and believing to get all the way up to the point where, but there still aren't any jobs, and there's still crime in my neighborhood, and there's still brothers who don't got dads. And so you're trying to care and you're giving your best and you want to be there for people to the point where it's like, my expectation is that something is supposed to give. Something's supposed to change. We're supposed to be loving each other. We're supposed to be not fighting as much. We're supposed to be kicking the bad habits. We're supposed to be loving each other stronger with all of this Christianity and all of this will and this productive capacity and all of these brothers who were smart and athletic, and nothing's changing. You go back to the neighborhood right now and it's like, there's nothing I can do. And that might be only 5% of the fatigue of what it was that I was passionate about. You wanted to create a change. The Urban League was there. The Crandall Rankins were there. There were people and networks that were there, and everybody's trying and pulling and pushing and doing what they can. And what is it that triggers it? It could have just been a road rage incident, somebody riding with their music too loud, anything that was just like, man, I give up, man. These thugs ain't gonna change. Man, I give up. The next generation still can't read. Man, I give up. Look at this woman's hair. She still got the yellow hair or the red hair or the pink hair. She's not serious about her life. Man, I give up. It's politics going on. It's social things that are going on. It's man, the police killed Stephon Clark right there, man. He was running from the police, which is a condition that most of them are trained with. Don't get caught. Man, there's so much that could happen, and you can say that it's anything, but really it starts with having a concern or a care in the first place. And then anything that goes and competes with that care and concern can become a trigger.
Man, hey, because you on top of your game tonight. I gotta give you that one.
Oh yeah, I love this one. I got some examples. I got a little bit of everything. we're gonna hit them with it, and we're gonna let them have it, and then let them heal. Hit them with it, let them have it, and let them heal.
I'm with it. Matt Thomas says here, relationships with humans, triggers.
Triggers.
Man. So when I was creating this content and I was really trying to figure out what compassion fatigue was to me, one of the things I said was that basically compassion is the lubricating substance between our human interactions. It's what allows grace. It's what allows understanding. It's what allows patience. And without that compassion, all you have is grinding, which creates friction, which creates resentment, which creates jealousy, which creates a ton of other negative experiences with our fellow humans on this planet. So you're right. Human relationships with humans is a very tricky thing, and interacting with a person that you love and you care about may be different than interacting with somebody you don't know, never met, don't have any genuine heartfelt care other than their human life. And those interactions, when you're dealing with compassion fatigue, specifically the triggers, it's like sometimes the people that you love and you care about, going back to what you were saying, Cousin Mo, the community that you love and you care about, that you want to see do better, actually triggers you faster than the person that you don't know or that you don't necessarily love and care about in the same way. So that's one of the triggers that I've learned, is that my patience or inability to be patient at times with those people that I love and I care about, because I just want them to get it. After you get done going through the person who cut you off and the boss who yelled at you and you know, the paycheck that didn't come in the way you wanted to see it come in, all those different things, after you go through those disappointments, which I assume are part of the triggers, those disappointments, you come back to this person and it's like, I love and I care about you, but I don't have anything left, no lubrication left for the interaction that I need to have with you. And I think that's like what you were saying, Cousin Mo, that compassion fatigue, it's something small, but because you've been so inundated with so much other triggers that by the time you get to something that's small, it's just overwhelming. So I like what you said there. Really quick before we jump back into these questions, also in the chat, you got brother Bruce Phillip to speak on it. Facts from Matt, and then the closest people to you are inherently the only ones who have direct access to your compassion supply. Ooh, man, hey, you know that's military. Cousin Mo, can you speak on that a little bit? Because that's military
man. He could be the only one dropping these nuggets, man. You got to reload on your compassion every once in a while. We might jump into that, but yeah, your supply of compassion can be drained by those who are close, and they can try, like you say, we got it from the being used. Are you being used? And you want to be used. You want to be somebody where people can call on. You're reliable. You're dependable. You've busted your helmet to make sure that people don't have that excuse. Like, I have nobody I can call on. Well, if you feel like you have no one you can call on, I feel like you're disrespecting me, because I've always been here for you. And if there was anything that I can do for you, I was always willing to be that person. But don't push me to the point of where I don't care no more.
Right.
Hey, let's keep moving before I get negative. You know, I like to stay positive. Brother Matt, don't be doing that to me, man.
That's true though. You do get to that point where it's like, okay, so apparently there's no appreciation. Lack of appreciation, another trigger. At least for me, if I feel unappreciated, it goes up quick. It's like, okay.
Lack of results, another one. You want to see something happen, man. Like, I've been pushing out what they say. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
Man, if you've been sick and tired, there is some compassion to not be sick and tired no more. And as long as you have to continue to endure that, you will start to become fatigued. Man, let's keep going.
All right, let's jump in. Let's jump back. So the next question I want to ask you is, part of problem identification is being able to understand the symptoms. So when we go to the doctor, we get a checkup, and let's say, I got a pimple on my face. The doctor may say, okay, that pimple looks a little strange. Let me take a biopsy, do some tests on it, and come back and let you know if that's actually just a pimple or if that's something else that's growing off your face. So that problem identification, or that symptom identification and then through further research, identifying the problem. What are some of those signs of compassion fatigue that we can see that will manifest in our lives, whether it be in our relationships, whether it be in our interactions at work, also just our overall interactions with others?
Let me give you a couple of good ones, and they're not the most obvious ones, because I like people who they can already think on the level 1, but these conversations move down to level 3. So number 1 I'm gonna give you is compassion distraction. So there is a sign where you notice that somebody's really into something. Like, let's say it was a content creator and they're creating, meaningful content. You can hear their messages evolving. Like, it wasn't just an opinion piece, but it was growing towards an end conclusion. It was almost like a narration or a short episode. If we were going to be talking for an hour and 30 minutes, they could have watched an entire Netflix show on that, a whole movie. So did their content evolve like a movie line? Well, it used to, but over some time, they've been doing it a while, and now it just seems like it was straightforward. Now they're doing 10-minute episodes. It's not really well researched. They're contradicting themselves, things like that. Compassion distraction happens when there's other things that start to grab your attention rather than the things that you ought to be focused on. I'm gonna say that one more time. There are things that are grabbing your attention that you should be focused on. Instead of creating the YouTube content, now you're on IG looking at the booty flicks. Hello, lights and walls. Amen. All by myself. If I might be speaking to myself, man. I'm gonna leave that one right there. Compassion distraction, where once somebody was devout, they were on it. You saw their attention to detail, and now their attention to detail isn't there. They were high performing, and now they're not as high performing. They're missing smaller details. They're less accurate there, brother Matt. They're less focused on what it was that they were so passionate about. Used to could feel it when they walked in the elevator. Used to could hear it in their voice, and you heard it. Those things that they were shooting for, and now it's that's on my personal level. But it happens in relationships too, right? What is the distraction? Well, you used to spend that time. You used to tell that joke. You used to crack that laugh. You used to hold that door. You used to cook that meal. You used to hold that hand. You used to make that time happen. And when it came to executing care, you took that time. And now you avoid it. It's like conflict. You
Mhm.
don't take the time, you avoid it. Like you do the 360, you go in the other way. That is probably a symptom of fatigue, that you've gone and you've executed as much as you can to that point, and now it's starting to dwindle. Imagine it as an upward bell curve. You had the peak, the climax in a relationship where you were doing all of these things, and at one point that care starts to turn into a reality piece where now it's just about getting to work. Now it's not about the conversation to be uplifting. It's about, well, here's the truth you need to hear. And you know, it starts to bend in the communication style. What are you saying now? Are you still speaking positive, or now is it more negative? Are you still inspiring others and uplifting others, or now you on a soapbox every day? I could probably be the only one who's ever experienced that. You're at work, right? And you used to handle those tasks and requirements and things that people were throwing at you, and well, here's the policy, and you could bob and weave and go with the punches. No worries, I got this, I can handle it, I have it done by 2 o'clock. No, I give it to you by 12. And now it's, are you asking me to do something else again? Look, here's my job description, check my resume. I get paid $100,000 not to be having these type of conversations. Is that where you're going? There may be some fatigue. See, at once you were a high performing contributor there, individual contributor on the job. You were somebody who was recognized, somebody who was a shooting star. You were acknowledged, and the senior leaders were coming to acknowledge you. They were shaking your hand and having you come have coffee with them and share your opinion of where you're at, and just share some insights on where we could be as a company. But now you've turned into the person that nobody even wants to meet in the break room because they know it's going to be another one of those conversations. You know what that is, Cousin Ro? That is another sign or a symptom of compassion fatigue. You were a high performer on the job. Maybe you weren't acknowledged. Maybe they didn't pat you on the back. They didn't give you the attention or the accolades. Maybe you were passed up a promotion. Maybe it wasn't even that serious. Maybe you just didn't like the way somebody said something to you, and that kind of drove you off your path a little bit. So either you were distracted or you're just allowing yourself to move into a space of less than focused. But I'm going to give you that one compassion distraction. When you find somebody who is no longer focused, sharp, attentive, driving, ambitious, they're pushing towards that mark, we can start to acknowledge that as it might be a sign of fatigue. I know I get long-winded, so I'm gonna drop it right there and just give you the one.
Nah, I'm just putting in the chat. You going in tonight. I don't know if they paying attention, but I'm paying attention. I'm already a page in on notes. No, I like that compassion distraction. Things start to grab your attention that otherwise wouldn't grab your attention. And the way I relate to that is in my last relationship, where I started getting that compassion distraction, where, you know, here the person that I'm supposed to love, is supposed to care for, is supposed to spend the rest of my life with. I am in those avoiding mentalities where, okay, how much stuff can I do before I actually have to come home? And that is a bad place, romantically, to be in. And it's funny because before I even got to that place, I remember doing a Wednesday Words. This is back when I was doing Wednesday Words in my backyard, everywhere I was walking, anywhere. So I remember I was doing one on are you in love or are you in like? And the way I was able to, for me to measure whether I was in like or in love was, well, I must be in love because I'm still willing to do the work. I'm still willing to execute. I'm still willing to be focused on trying to meet the needs of this partner. And then now, and where I am in life now, I'm not actively working to meet those needs. I do still love the person, but I am not in love with the person. And so that compassion distraction, it's so prevalent to the relationships that we have. And until you said it now, I never even processed it as a symptom of, you know, well, why does your attention start to wane? And why do you start focusing on other females instead of the person that you're in a relationship with? Why do you start to spend more time doing other things than spending that 5%? Because remember, if all you had was 5% to spend with this person, it's really quick and easy to count down 4, 3, 2, 1. Because you're spending your time with that person. So, man, I like where you're going with that. The other thing that I put here, I put a little side note. It says, when you stop being, when you stop working towards the person that you want to become, that's also another sign, because that is also another element of losing focus. Like when you stop working towards being a husband, when you stop working towards being a wife, when you stop working towards being an executive, even though you work in the mailroom. These are areas of compassion fatigue that snag us up. So, I like where you went with that one. Let's move into another area that I have my own thoughts on, and I'll probably share a little bit of them, but I want to know your thoughts when it comes to how much does compassion fatigue play a part in social issues. And I'm going to give you a couple categories, even though I know you got your own categories.
Bars.
Bars.
Can we start with mental health?
Right? I got racism, politics, business, and understanding mental health issues. Those are the four areas that I feel like compassion fatigue can have a significantly detrimental impact.
I mean, there are others too, right? So, it's really about the passion. And remember, my overall theme, if you take away anything today, is going to be about executing care. The reason why you can be fatigued is because you care. And there is a lot in our society trying to pull us in many different directions. Care about this, care about whales, care about global warming, care about building a wall, care about building relationships, care about, finance, care about credit, care about getting to the racing to the top, care about education, care about your wife, care about your kids, care about the foods that you eat. Out of all of these things, I think you hit some of the major topics. Racism, compassion fatigue can play a role in racism, right? Because it is a natural inclination to be race first or race specific or race neutral or however you call it. You may not be a racist in the terms of the derogatory meaning that how people see it now. If I'm called a racist, that means that I'm bad. Yeah, maybe, but being race first is likely, the same interpretation, but race first meaning who do you hang out with, when you have your interactions, where is this society constructed about racism, meaning I can be a racism against my own people, Cousin Ro. I can get tired of Black folks. I promise you I can. I promise you I can. I love them to death, but I'm not ashamed to admit it. I can get tired of them every once in a while. I was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've heard the dialect and I've heard the slang, and I felt the pace and the rhythm and the cadence of being in Atlanta, and then I had to compare it to the pace and the rhythm and the cadence of being in California, and then the style and the laws and everything that was going along. It was like, why does it seem like African Americans in Atlanta are moving at a faster pace than African Americans in Northern California, when it seems like the people in Northern California have all the opportunity and freedom in the world in a democratic, elected state. And in Atlanta, it seems like it was like, but everybody is hustling and moving and trying to start a business and investing in something. And it was like, do you trust them? Do you not trust them? Are they fast talking? Are you trying to get? I couldn't even keep up in Atlanta. I was like, man, every perception, I just had to get a break. Now I'm here in Arizona, and it's like, man, what do you do? Outside of every major city, you'll find some of the major supremacist groups who are race first. Can it play a role? Yeah, because you really do like your country. You really aren't walking around hating people, but you do have something in yourself that has a care for those who look like you, come from the same culture, same practices, same nuances. I'm not politically correct when I make this pivot. Politics is one of those things that I try to avoid. I'm not really political like that. I have certain opinions about politics. I have certain opinions about politicians. The Chamber of Commerce, I'm more like having those conversations. NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, we can talk a little bit, but really they're not a significant number or contributor to the impact of what's going on in society. They're losing battles politically on the African-American front, but whenever they win battles, it's for the world, right? So every race gets the benefit from the African-American political body. They're fighting battles on behalf of Asians, Mexicans, Samoans, Tongans, everybody that's a non-white person can win victories for African Americans, i.e. affirmative action. All diversity is included when they fight their political battles, but they're so small in number, they might find themselves fatigued. They find themselves fighting an army or fighting with arms that are too short to fight those battles. And when it's time to do some, alliances or building up and some, all of that, they find themselves alone, isolated. African Americans in politics trying to fight by themselves. So that can go anywhere. Business as well. You can probably count them on one hand, the number of African American leaders who are in the Fortune 500 companies as CEOs and presidents. You know, you could probably count them on one hand. The women as well, women CEOs who are in business, you could probably count them in one hand. These battles that are continuing to be continuously waged against just the ideology of white supremacy or race first, the white Protestant male being in a position of dominance in corporate America, religion, and politics. These battles can give you fatigue. Trying to raise money just to fight this same battle, just to get this one person. Warren Buffett right now could probably say yes to reparations. His businesses, the Blackwater, Berkshire Hathaway, his land ownership, his contacts, Ted Turner and Warren Buffett combined could provide reparations to every African American in America. And he's like 88 years old, so it's his choice to make. But they probably won't. And the other institutions that are competing for his good graces and to be benefactors of, you know, all of that. They own like Geico. They own shares in most banks and oil and things like that. The reparations can happen with the stroke of a pen by those two individuals. Could make reparations happen. But will they? Probably not. Why? Because what's good for African-American politics is probably not the best thing for those who still want to hold on to race first identity politics and business. So lastly, the one that I would have loved to talk about first, you know, I think is if I could move from a space of from co-contributor to contributor in the first row, understanding mental health issues, that would be where I would want to go. As a veteran, PTSD, I don't say I'm suffering, I don't say I'm surviving. It is a part of my existence, it's a part of my journey, but there is a stigma, Cousin Ro, in corporate America, in politics, even in the media, where, oh, he must be crazy. Let's check his record. I walk into corporate America and they're like, oh, he's crazy, or they use it so loosely. It's almost like, oh, he's a fag, or oh, she's a bitch. I won't even say that one. You know, it just suddenly got dark in here. It's one of those colloquialisms that are used, and they may not have the intent of being hurtful, but being somebody who understands. It's like, what can we do to overcome these stigmas against mental health? And we're not doing ourselves any favors by not addressing compassion fatigue. We're not doing our corporate America, our business partners, we're not doing our political body, and we're not doing our America, our democratic process, our people, our one nation, any benefit by not addressing compassion fatigue and how prevalent it is, because we all have something we're trying to execute.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy that, you know, you can get to compassion fatigue and it's like right on the other side of that is callous, cruel, and cold. Like, it's not like, okay, so now my compassion is fatigued. Really, I believe that like the fatigue and the burnout almost happened simultaneously, because you were getting worn out to that point of fatigue. And then once you're in fatigue, your patience for everything is pretty much shot. You're not gonna, so you take shortcuts. It's like, even when I talk to my kids about racism, I'm like, you know, racism is based on a couple of stereotypical things, a couple skewed ideologies. But here's my overall definition, is that racism is simply a lazy tactic to try to categorize somebody that you are not willing to or have not taken the time to understand. And the same thing can come from mental health. When we call somebody crazy, oh yeah, they crazy. Number one, we don't even identify because we become so desensitized to the language that we use. That's why I did a Wednesday word on learn the language. We've become so desensitized to the language that we use that we do not understand the damage that it causes well beyond the surface. Because if you tell me I'm crazy, and I've actually had this experience before where somebody has told me something about myself, and in my younger, more malleable mindset, I just was like, you're right. They said like I was going to be mad about something. And every time I look back at that experience, I'm like, I wouldn't have been mad about that. But the preparation of the language used with me of, you're going to be mad. Okay, well, let me get into my character, because I got to get ready to be mad. So then when you give me the news, I don't want you to feel like I'm not who you thought I was. I kind of want to feel like I'm who you think I am. So now I have to have this anger and this rage about something that honestly I in hindsight and in foresight, I really didn't care about. So you're right, especially when it comes, like I said, to mental health, being dismissive of the mental health condition, and just simply generalizing the category of which a person falls in. Well, and we came from the same hood, cousin Mo. There's varying levels of craziness because there's varying levels of sickness. You can have a cold, you can have allergies, you can have a small cough, a little tickle in the throat, or you can have influenza and bronchitis. There's varying levels of sickness. There are varying levels of crazy. If not, it'd just be crazy. So I'm with you when it comes to understanding that. I do want to bring a couple things in the chat because I'm gonna lose the chat for a second. Matt Thomas says, I'm gonna start calling you Matt because that's what I've always called you, Matt. But Matt Thomas says their compassion account is in the negatives, and I think that's talking about Berkshire Hathaway. Brother Moses, you said normalizing mental health shaming. Absolutely. Jennifer Chambers, JC, we should be very mindful of the language we use. And I'll try. That's what Cousin Mo says. Hey, we'll all try. But there's another question that I wrote here for you because you were talking a little bit in the introduction of this particular question. You were talking about the many distractions, the many things that are trying to pull at your compassion. Oh, well, there's this movie that was written and it's supposed to kind of pull on your compassion strings. And see this video or this ad or this puppy that needs you to care for it and it needs you to adopt it, pulling at your compassion. How do we tune out all of the vying things that are competing for the attention of our compassion? Or how do you do that?
You got to tune in. Tune in. You definitely got to look in. I'm gonna leave that right there. You got it. The only way to tune out is to tune in.
Tune in. I'm gonna just put focus, focus, focus.
Oh yes.
That's I don't remember when I heard this story, but that reminds me of the story about the horse with the blinders, how the blinders help the horse win the race and keep them from being distracted by the crowd and the other horses that are running right next to him. All the horse focuses on is what's directly in front of it. And sometimes I agree with you, in order to be intentionally compassionate, you have to decide where you're going to focus your attention at and keep your attention focused there. It's no different than when you're on a conference call and somebody's talking. You have to intentionally focus on them or your mind will wander off from whatever they're talking about. And you'll only hear certain things that your brain is designed to hear regardless of what it's doing. Your name, goodbye, hello, and then the little notification beep that comes when somebody drops out and comes back in. Those are
I love that now. You just joined.
Right. Those are the only things you're going to hear. Other than that, all the other information is just background noise. And you don't get any retention. You don't get comprehension. It just flies and comes and it goes. So I like that. The way you overcome those, the way you tune out those distractions or those things pulling on your attention is you tune in. You become intentionally focused on what you want to be compassionate about. I like that a lot, Cousin Mo. The next question I want to ask you is, it's kind of in the same vein of that tuning in, but I want to say it's more so. I think this happens more so when we're dealing with people that we care about. So in essence, if we're going to say there's the yin and the yang, there's the tuning in and the tuning out, right? And so if you are coming to me and I am not willing to allow you to distract my communication, I'm going to tune into something else. However, I am tuning you out. And so when we have like our children or our significant others or our parents, cousins, uncles, friends that we're very close with, when they're coming to us with things, how do we protect ourselves from becoming fatigued by these inevitable demands on our compassion that we may not be able to simply tune out?
Oh yeah, that's hard, right? Because it's almost innate. We don't want to be selfish. Innate, we do want to help other folks. We do have, some bandwidth to help others, and we don't necessarily want them to become our distraction either, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question, how do we protect ourselves from that type of fatigue when it's coming from those distractions, those close and those very worthwhile distractions? Forgive yourself. It always comes down to this. Give yourself permission, man. Give yourself permission. Like, I think you got, it may have been from you who I learned this. You got the right to tell them no. You got every right to say nope. And like, some people like to beat around the bushes, not how you said it. Nope.
It's not how you know.
Not right. Nope. Like, you try it in different tones. Like, go in the mirror when you wake up and practice different ways you can say no and see how liberating it. Like, do it with a funny face, do it with a straight face, drop your voice a little bit. Nah, no. Like, doing it like movie voices where you've heard, and it will be an empowering episode even for yourself, because you know you deserve the right to say no. You know you deserve the right to say no. And there's oftentimes you want to say no anyway, and you're only doing it because out of whatever shame or guilt or whatever it is. Oh, I feel like I owe them. No, you don't. Nope. Especially when you're feeling most, like, let's say I'm right here on my success. I am right here at the finish line, and you want me to look over and, hey, can you sign this autograph? The tortoise and the hare. And you're right there at the finish line. And are you really going to stop what you're doing to go sign that autograph? As much as you like and enjoy your friends and your fans and people who are rooting for you and all of that, often we allow ourselves to be distracted for no other reason than because it makes our ego feel good. But the race is right there. Your compassion is to help others and to be a positive impact in the lives of others. And so the worst thing that you can do is allow yourself to be negative. You need to stay positive. Their eyes are on you right now in this very moment. They're watching you, not just through this video, but they are right there watching you right now, seeing how you are going to respond. Even that person who is trying to distract you is hoping that you will say no. You will give them the opportunity to get it themselves. Their children, they are their loved ones, they are bosses, they are people who depend on you, direct reports, they are neighbors, and even they need you to tell them no.
So it ain't gonna happen. Nah.
I think I'm gonna wake up and tell my wife no. Baby, I'm gonna go when I wake up in the morning and ask me a question. I'm gonna tell her no. That's why we're gonna do this. We got to get used to it, right? Because we've never been in a position of authority too much. And now that we're starting to work our way back onto that path where we understand our sovereignty, we understand that we have dreams and visions. We understand we have dreams and we have a vision that we can accomplish, but that we're going to have to execute on that. If we care about the calling that's been on our lives, if we care about what our ancestors put in us, if we have an intelligence, if we have a word, if it's the spiritual sense and you have a word that you're supposed to be delivering upon high, and that's your calling. If it's in business, and you know, when you were in business, you really didn't like the product that you were selling, but you like the ability to help those small businesses thrive. So you were pushing that and you were helping them. If that is where you were and you allowed yourself to be distracted, shame on you, especially if you allowed yourself to be distracted because you couldn't find it in yourself to say no.
Because you couldn't find it to say no. Let's throw a couple of things from you got people preaching with you. I feel like they standing up in the pews right now. It says, Matt says, I feel it's important to say no every once in a while just to ensure the relationship's foundation isn't based on me saying yes. I got something for that, Matt. And then Jennifer says, great points. Forgive yourself and allow yourself to say nope, even when it's family. Man, that I think I'm gonna go with Matt's first, and then I got something with JC's. And Mo, if you got something you want to add, feel free. But with Matt, basing that relationship on saying yes. I just had this conversation last night with somebody because they had placed a post up on social media, and it was talking about how, you know, when a man wants to make a relationship work, he will move mountains to basically keep this woman that he wants the relationship with happy. And my question was, okay, so what does the woman do? And so that was my question like 3 days ago. And then the person had messaged me and I was like, hey, you never answered my question. I really want to know what the woman does.
She moves that mountain right back.
She said, you got that one out the way. Here's another
kidding, babe. Kidding, babe. She gives you a whole nother hill. That was a little mountain.
That was a test. That was a test mountain. But just like Matt says, is if you base the foundation of the relationship on yes, babe, yes, dear. That's why when they say happy wife, happy life, I'm like, no, happy spouse, happy house. We should both be working towards our own individual happiness and our collective happiness. Somebody actually told me, because I went into a marriage counseling session with, I got needs and she needs to make them for me because they got needs. And other than that, I could go and find happiness through somebody else. And the person was like, yeah, your happiness is not her responsibility. I said, what? I said, what? She was like, yeah, your happiness is not her responsibility. That is way too much pressure to put on any human being to be responsible for your happiness. That is your responsibility. And I was like, that's one of those moments where you sit in the counseling, you're like, damn.
Can you imagine the fatigue that she would have experienced having to be accountable for your happiness, for the things that you are really passionate, you are driven for, you are convicted. Like if you don't do this, you're going to start losing oxygen. Like for every day that you're not executing on your care, on this one particular thing, on reaching people, impacting lives in a positive way, for every day that you don't, you lose a breath on the end of your life. How many breaths are you for every minute, every hour that you're not executing on this thing that you really love and really gives you life? You're just losing a day on the end of your life. You're going to die young. And that's what you want her to take on. The thing that's really giving you happiness, joy, now has to be supplemented by her actions. I'm sorry. Excuse me. No. She deserved every time she told you no, cousin. Right? Nope.
Nope. Nope. So I feel what Matt's saying there. Also, JC, what you're saying as far as being able to say no, even when it's with family. And I think that's one of the hardest things, especially as a parent. Like, it's easy right now to say no to my kids because they're in my house. At the end of the day, they're going to have food. They're going to have shelter. They're going to have the things that they need. They're the necessities of life they will have. However, we see, boomerang kids coming back, and not necessarily because they've made good choices and just want to come back because they miss you. So we see these situations where, you have people who come and they live with you, and this can be outside of your family. They come and they live with you. And then it's like, your gut says, I should offer some compassion and some help, but this isn't the compassion or the help that I should be offering. So I'm going to consider that. We're going to categorize that, Cousin Mo, as compassion confusion. We get confused on what actions actually indicate or can be received as compassion. And so we start doing the wrong actions that we think, okay, well, it's not really what I'm comfortable with. It's not really what I want to give, which means what you said earlier, Mo. I've got to give up some of my life years holding my breath, trying to give something I really don't want to give. And then what do we end up doing? We feel like at the end of it all, we get burned. Even if they just get back on their feet and, hey, you lived with me for this short little stint, you're back on your feet, you're thriving, you're doing what you need to do, but you can't even genuinely be happy for the person because you have malice and jealousy and envy. Well, you're only on your feet because you came and lived with me for 4 months. What? Like, you should have just said, nope, here's what I can do for you. And I've actually had situations where I've had to literally look myself in the mirror and say, okay, Billy, what do you want to give? And sometimes the things that I wanted to give were nothing. Like, no, I'm good. I'm at my limit. I don't want to give another thing. I can walk away with this point and be like, hey, I gave what I wanted to give. You got what I was willing to give. I'm not willing to give anymore. So if I even give you another day of energy, I'm going to hold that against you. So it's best that I not give you anything else. And in some cases, that tough conversation with yourself truly is compassion for the other person.
It is.
You shouldn't be setting people up to sweep the rug from under their feet because you didn't really want to give it. So now you're reneging on the deal that you tried to set up and establish with them. Just saying. Cousin Mo, you got anything you want to add to that?
I got some notes. Hey, man, I'm taking notes, man. I come prepared for these intersations, man. Right. I think we just put together a model on compassion. So it starts with confusion, right? Compassion, confusion. You don't exactly know what it is that you're truly passionate about to the point where you would even have a breaking point. So you're just going to work and going through the motions. But should you ever become reflective and figure out that there is something in this world that means just as much to you about as oxygen, it might be the love and the relationship that you have. If it is all all praise to you. It could be the religion. It could be, I just want to serve God and that's it. That could be the thing, and become a Buddhist monk or a Rastafarian, a nature lover or something like that. Whatever it is that you find that is just like air to you, business or the positive impact that you can have in the lives of others. If that's where you're at, then you move out of that confusion state and you move into compassion confirmation. So you start validating it with your experiences with others. You see what they're doing. I know that's good. Now here's how I know how I can help you. If you can articulate, if you can find some way to help somebody else, given what you love to do every day, then you know that you've confirmed within yourself what it is that you're actually compassionate about. That one thing that if anything stands in competition with your compassion, you'd be ready to fight or break down. You'd be at that point of fatigue where you're right at that bell curve at the top of it. And now it has to start coming down a little bit, because what you're moving into where? Compassion distraction, where there are so many other things that are going to try to pull you away from that you've confirmed. But once you confirmed it in yourself, you know that you can identify these are just distractions. You've developed in yourself the ability to say no. You've developed in yourself the ability to say yes. You forgive yourself when you do have to say no, when you could have said yes. You forgive yourself when you said yes at times when you could have said no. Then you know that you're executing, right? Every day is not going to be the same, but you're finding fulfillment. You're finding people are willing to help out. You're finding people that aren't willing to help out, or you're not really bothered by that anymore. Now you're in the execution stage. And finally, at the point of resolution, when God says, my good and faithful servant, well done, compassion resolution. If your passion, the thing that you are most passionate about, can be accomplished before you're called home, then it probably wasn't the full thing. And I don't know if you could live a fully fulfilled life without having fulfilled that thing that you're most passionate about. If you never find it, shame on you. Start looking now. If you need help, find a friend, phone a friend, call anybody, drop your number in the chat, email, give us a call. Let's find out what we're passionate about and find out how we can start driving each other towards that excellence. Told you I was taking notes, Cousin Ro.
Hey. I feel like I was listening to a track.
It's money right there.
I'm feeling that. No, so let me read my notes back really quick. Compassion confusion leads to compassion confirmation, leads to compassion distraction, compassion execution. If you don't get it right, it's compassion fatigue, and then compassion resolution. And we got a lot of compassions going on tonight. I like this topic. We're gonna have to create a master's class on this compassion fatigue subject, Cousin Mo. So
he's saying the greatest of these is love, man. What do you love? Where is your passion, and how are you sharing that with someone else?
On first row. That's how I'm
on the first row.
On the first row.
It's free today. It's free today for our TED Talks.
Right. Shameless plug. First row. So let's get ready to wrap things up a little bit. But I have another question, because so we talked about problem identification. We've talked a little bit about the problem itself. We've got great steps on compassion, from compassion confusion all the way through compassion resolution. But for those who may find themselves in a compassion fatigue situation, what are some ways that they can recharge their compassion banks?
Yeah, that's a good one too, right? Because not everybody's even in a position to pour out from what they got. And so there's people who we might consider part of our closest support network, and they like, nope. It's gonna happen. There'll be that time where you used to be that person for someone else, and then that person cannot be there for you, and you got to be willing to understand them as well. So having a support system is probably the primary reason, the thing, our go-to, right? Who can you call on when you know that you're burned out and you know you just need to vent? You do need the soapbox. You do need a moment of distraction. It can be comforting, that moment of distraction, whether it's like yourself. Health is wealth. So I think you might work out because you know that that's preserving the quality of your life. For others, it might just be what they need to get back recalibrated, right? A good meal. Some people can do it with cooking. They just need a little bit of a distraction. Others, they just have to dive a little bit deeper in. If you're truly ambitious like my wife is, she might take that 1 5-minute break and let that teardrop fall, and I might be sitting there on the other side letting the teardrop fall on my side. But then she can reach across and wipe my tear. I can reach across and wipe hers, because we know we got to get back to it. Ambition and a sense of fulfillment, getting the next thing achieved, smaller goals. Then let's break this down into some even smaller elements so that we can start filling that, repleting or refreshing ourselves, refilling that cup a little bit out of a little bit, rather than hoping that our whole entire selves are refilled in once. once we're feeling fatigued. There's a lot that people can do. Being reflective helps for some. A nutritious meal, soul or comforting food helps others. That warm, what is it, a goose down blanket helps others. Some of them need to sleep it off. Like the soldiers, drink some water. You need some water, man. Like you don't have no time to waste with the thing that you are really passionate about. Because if you don't do it, it will not be done. You are the only one who can accomplish the things that you were supposed to accomplish. God only called one person to do the things that you were supposed to do. Guess who that is, Cousin Ro?
You, yourself, and you.
Whatever you need to do. If you're feeling fatigued, brother, call me, email, chat, Instagram, LinkedIn. Do what you got to do to tap into a support system. Reach out and connect. Find your thing that gets you back motivated, and understand compassion fatigue happens because remember, it's right there. It's right there. It's right there.
No, I like what you're preaching, Cousin Mo. I like what you're preaching. The crazy thing is that
there you go. Mental health shaming.
The interesting thing is, and hey, I'm not above learning the language myself.
We're all on that journey. Yes.
The interesting thing is that we seem to understand that things need energy. We understand that, like the lights that are on, the laptop that I'm on, the camera, the internet, our cell phones, we understand that these things need energy. But when it comes to compassion, I feel like a lot of us neglect the recharge, neglect the refill, or as you said earlier to Matthew, the reload. Sometimes you got to re-up. And if you can't find that within yourself, you have to find it through your support system. That's really the only thing that you're going to have. And while you were speaking, Cousin Mo, I actually put another layer of compassion fatigue. Once you're completely exhausted, then you're compassion bankrupt, where you don't have anything else to give. Like you said, you're trying to pour another drop of water out of that jar that's now dry. And unfortunately, if there's absorption that needs to take place, or absorbing fibers in that jar, when you go to start putting compassion back in, the first thing that's going to get filled up is you. It's not the people that are waiting for you to pour the next drop. It's you. And until those fibers have absorbed to saturation, you're not pouring another drop. So I like what you're saying, because we neglect the need to recharge, and then we end up compassion bankrupt, where we don't have any more funds to give, any more injuries. Notice I use the word funds because there's another word that they would use in that.
It has the same number of letters too. Can I add two things right there? Reloading, re-upping, also to remember, right? So there's a lot of, I was in therapy, and here's the real reason why I really love this topic, right? Because you could see veterans who were proud, they were ambitious, they were serving their country, they were happy about it, but you can find them under a bridge, addicted to drugs, heroin, whatnot, chasing that first high, burned out under those bridges, and the VA trying to find care for them, and the budget to get care in politics, and the racism to be able to support some and not the others, and the business connections that says, will you even hire a vet and give them the opportunity to change their lives? And these opportunities, the people who are actually fighting for these changes, the business connections, the politics to get us the budget, and then the VA to overcome the intergenerational racism that they keep passing down. That's where fatigue is. And you see them walking around where they have no funds left to give, and they were living on that government check, and now they were living on the desire to serve, and they can't find it again, and they can't even remember, and it's probably too late for some of them to even reload. So what do we do but protect and care and show concern for each other as we can, and remember to stay focused, man? Hey, this is a powerful build, man. I'm gonna let you go on, and I think you probably either have one more question. I know we at that time though, so I had to throw that in though.
Hey, no, that's good. We actually at the time where you're about to say everything that you want to say. So it's first off, before we even get to this, man, this has been a phenomenal Intersation. And I knew from the time that we put this on the calendar, 3 months ago, the time we put this on the calendar, I knew that this was going to be a powerful Intersation. So for those who are watching live, I don't know what to tell you. Cousin Mo is at not even rare form. He's at a Super Saiyan form, because Matt, I know you know Dragon Ball Z. So he's at a Super Saiyan form right now on just giving out tons of knowledge and wisdom. And really, that is what First Row is about having these different perspectives shared on an open forum to where we can all grow from it. Because like I said, I'm not above growing. Look, I already threw crazy back in dismissively and nonchalantly, and I'm okay with Moses saying, "Hey, look, there you go, Look, so you just threw it back out there. You're right, I did. So let me work on improving my language so that I can be more effective in what I want to do, which is inspire millions of people." So with that, let's jump on this last question, Cousin Mo. As you always know, the last question is for those who are watching via live, or for those who may watch later on during the replay for this Intersation. What would you want their key 2 or 3 takeaways to be from tonight's conversation?
I'm gonna give you 3 and I'm gonna make them quick. So hopefully you got your pen out. The number 1 that we talked about, we broke it down in our example to the percentage of time that you spend. Compassion is a thing, but time is finite. You can measure it. 10%, there are, 1,440 minutes in a day. That's 24 hours. 60 minutes times 24 gives you 1,440 minutes. 10% of that is 144 minutes. 5%, which is the amount that me and my wife are shooting for, is 72 minutes a day. That is an hour and 12 minutes where you need to find time for you, not your job, not because it pays the bills, not parenting because you're supposed to be a dad, but for you. What are you passionate about? If you're still at that beginning stage, let's move into the second one, the compassion model that we brought up. If you're still in that stage of confusion where you don't quite know what it is that you are passionate about, then I believe that now is the best time. I'm 36 years old figuring it out. I might be 37. Wait, I was born in 82. Yeah, let me carry the 1. Yeah, I'll be 37 this year. So, and I'm still on that journey, right? There were things that I thought I was passionate about, things that are resurfacing. I know that I love music, and if there was one thing that I could do, eat, sleep every day, it would be music, some form of music. I find myself singing even while I'm at work today, and now I hear other folks singing. I even had to ask just to get some cultural relativity. I was like, what is the equivalent in your culture to like our soul, our R&B, our Barry White, what is your equivalent? They were like country. I was like, okay. I didn't know that was your love ballad right there. I know a love ballad when I hear a love ballad, but I was culturally, but music, and it connected and it didn't feel awkward. And I was like, wow, music is my connecting bridge. If I could do music, even at work, humming between calls or humming between meetings, beep, hear that beep and make a song out of it. Like put that in a song, and only the people with a 9 to 5 know what that beep is.
Yeah,
exactly. Did you just join? Yep, that's it right there. But if you're at that confusion stage, confirmation is coming. Execution is a part of the plan. If you allow yourself to be distracted, hopefully it's a positive distraction. But in all, my third point is that we're about executing care. There's enough hatred in this world. There's enough distractions. There's enough reasons for you to be not what your potential would have you to be. I don't want to see more folks like my veterans, my brothers in arms, underneath the bridge with the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, who had big plans, big dreams, big pride, big ambition. And now the biggest thing that they have is a blunt or a pipe. And that's the most that they can look forward to in their life. We can execute with care, and we know that we have to because there are lives at stake, not just our own, but the lives of those we love. Thank you for your time, Cousin Ro. I'm just a co-contributor. One day I will be a contributor, though, and I'm thinking long and hard about it. I think it's about understanding mental health and overcoming that stigma in all facets of life, having these type of discussions around it so that it's comfortable and folks know that it does matter. Right. To those who are here today, appreciate it. Matt Haynes is like blood. He couldn't be closer. Hakuna Matata, the Lion King is coming out in June. I may have to go watch it out there where he's at just because of the relationship that we have. And that being said, for those who watched it in this one live, thank you. Those who watch it in the restream, thank you as well. Cousin Mo, go ahead, cousin. We got some tools coming, right?
Absolutely. You know, we on the first row. We always have tools on the first row. I feel like I don't even want to give tools, to be honest. I feel like we gave a lot. As
You got a lot.
Wade said last Friday, we dropped a lot of game on this particular topic tonight. So, but as Cousin Mo, first off, hats off to you, Cousin Mo. Great Intersation. And I'll probably even tell you this again when we go off air, but it is phenomenal to see you in the areas where you're passionate at, especially growing up in the same neighborhood as you, knowing what we all have gone through, running from house to house, your house, my house, Tim's house, everybody's house. It's just phenomenal. And I'm glad to be on this journey of inspiration, of growth, of development, and have such powerful people such as yourself joining me and helping me to stay recharged and charged for the tasks at hand. So I just want to thank you again for that. Hats off to you, cousin.
Thank you.
With that, with every Intersation, I feel like, dang, I really want to be like, can y'all just clap for the man? But nobody, we can't hear him, but I'm going to clap for you. But with every Intersation, there is a segment at the end called Tools for the First Row. So really quickly, the name First Row, where that came about was, number one, my last name is Rowe, W-R-O-E. It's a play on my name, but it's also because when I was younger, I had a business mentor. And the business mentor taught me two very important things about the first row. Number one, the people on the first row make the most money. Number two, they get the most information because there is no distraction between them and the person providing the information. So that is where the name First Row actually comes from. Though it's a play on my last name, it's a reminder of that business lesson that I was taught at a very young age about being on the first row. So as a result, you guys are all on the first row tonight, live or on the replay. You're on the first row, a front row, first row seat to everything that was displayed tonight. And as such, being on the first row, I have created, using this content, tools for the first row. These tools are the tools that I've come up with while I was creating the content and really reflecting on how I've been able to overcome compassion fatigue in certain areas of my life. Because as Cousin Mo said, we are all working on the progress, or we're all works in progress. And I'll be forgetting how old I am too, so don't worry. But I'm 37. I'm turning 38 in 2 weeks. But that compassion fatigue that I have learned to deal with doesn't encompass everything that I get fatigued in. So there are still areas that I become fatigued in, and I might become more frustrated, or I might have less lubrication in my interactions with everyday people, those relationships that we care about, or those relationships that we don't even have with strangers. And so as such, I created the tools for the first row, thinking about and reflecting about my own experiences with compassion fatigue and how I was able to overcome them. So I'm gonna bring up, as Cousin Mo said, I'm stepping my game up. I'm gonna bring up a graphic so you can see the tools that we have for the first row visually, because that's what we do. We do things visually sometimes so that they stick better. But as you can see, we got tools for the first row. The very first tool that I came up with when it comes to compassion fatigue was use sympathy rather than absorption. And actually, when I first wrote this, I said sympathize instead of synthesize. But the reason I say use sympathy rather than absorption is because I feel like sympathy is a great thing when it comes to being compassionate. Like, it allows you to resonate and understand what a person is going through because you're bouncing it against other experiences that you yourself have had. However, when we start to leave sympathy and go into absorption, we actually start to assimilate the positive and negative energies of trying to be compassionate for somebody else. Remember, I broke down compassion at the very beginning of this as co-suffering. So if you're sympathizing and you're co-suffering with someone, you're able to help them get through it. But once you guys are both through it, or once they're in a healthy place that once you've given what you're willing to give in that compassion state, you're able to move forward and not be drugged down by that experience. However, when you absorb it, what you're doing is you're assimilating that energy and creating an environment in yourself, not only to sympathize with them, but you're also now going to carry that positive and or negative energy with you for a longer period than the actual compassion moment was designed to rectify. So the first tool being use sympathy rather than absorption is very important, because that when you're holding on to things beyond their expiration date, what happens is they continue to drain power. It's almost like if you leave your phone screen on all day, your battery dies faster. If you are playing video games on your phone all day, scrolling through Instagram all day, that requires a higher demand of energy and your battery dies faster. So even if you are recharging yourself, your battery consumption is at a higher level and a higher rate. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a later tool. So that's the first thing. Use sympathy rather than absorption, and or sympathize rather than synthesize. The next tool that I came up with when dealing with compassion fatigue was treat each experience as an individual opportunity. And Cousin Mo, I can't say this any more clearer than what you've already said. What I mean by that is you have the ability to say yes, and you have the ability to say no. It's an individual opportunity, not an individual obligation. Sometimes we confuse the word obligation or the word opportunity with obligation. No, it's an individual opportunity for you to say yes and give what you want to give in compassion, or say no and understand that just by saying no when you really don't want to give it is an act of compassion in and of itself. The other thing that I have here when it comes to treat each experience as an individual opportunity is that part of that is that not everyone finds the solution, has or will find the solution at the same rate that you were able to find it. And so part of that is understanding that, you know, this is a challenge that I've had with my sons, understanding that they are not me at their age, they are them at their age. So the challenges and the frustrations that I have as a parent when I'm like, why aren't they getting it? Why aren't they understand? Why aren't they making better choices? Why aren't they getting better grades? Those frustrations that I have are somewhat based on my experiences at their age, where some grades sometimes I got bad grades, but I knew how to make up the difference. And sometimes I got good grades and didn't have to make up the difference. So when you're treating it as an individual opportunity, and not only saying that yes or no, understand that people learn and experience solutions at their rate, not your rate. And the last thing about this is that it's important to treat it as an individual opportunity, because when you start blending similar circumstances together and trying to address them with we call those broad strokes. I think we talked about one time, Cousin Mo, when you're trying to address them with broad strokes and paint everything the same color with the same brush that's 30 feet wide, you're going to mispaint or misallocate some things to certain people. And I just had this experience recently where I was on social media and a person that I knew had just got out of alcohol rehabilitation. And in their getting out of alcohol rehabilitation, they're really trying to own the process of being healthy and staying away from their addictive behavior. The issue is that they still have a bunch of friends that want to do the destructive behavior that may not be destructive to the friends, but it is destructive to the person. And so in that, they really had to start saying, yeah, no, I can't hang out with you. I can't hang out with you. I can't hang out with you. Let's go to the club. I can't go to the club. Let's go here. I can't go there. And had to start saying no because for their own health. And so in an effort to be compassionate towards that person, I tried to make a celebratory event for them, not like anything elaborate, not like a surprise party or anything, but just taking them out to eat a meal. But in that, I had to make sure that I was willing to go out and eat a meal without drinking alcohol, make sure that I was willing to go out and make a good environment for them to successfully be in the state that they wanted to be in. On the other side of that, so that's really great. I feel like that's really great compassion. That's treating the individual unlike, oh, well, you're just another alcoholic and you'll fall off the bandwagon again. That's dangerous of that broad stroke. But then there's another person where they got out of rehabilitation, same element, alcohol, where they've gotten out of rehabilitation, and I'm watching on social media as they go to parties and they turn up and they do all these things that are destructive to them. However, once things fall apart, as they fall apart again, and this is part of the mental health element, different levels and different severities of sickness, when things fall apart, then they jump back on social media and they're, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know how I made this mistake again, this, that, and the other. So my compassion fatigue has a low tolerance for that. because I come from a background or a family. One side of my family had struggled with drug abuse. And so I'm really big on like, hey, look, like I might give you a plate, but you can't stay here and you can't come into my space. Hey, if you want to do whatever you're doing, that's cool. You do that in your area, but you're not welcome to do that around and in or by my children or in my house. So those are the areas that are easy to resonate with me, where it's like I could easily say, well, because I've come from a family with drug addicts and I've watched them steal from people that they supposedly love or that love them. I've seen them kill themselves with drugs. I can easily paint broadly with this stroke, but if I treat each individual circumstance as an individual opportunity, then it allows me to retain my compassion and allocate it accordingly. So I know that was a little long-winded, but that's the second tool that I came up with for compassion fatigue. The third tool, which is also an equally important tool when it comes to compassion fatigue, whenever this decides to come up, is acknowledge the signs of fatigue. So going back to that breakdown where the last part I said can be, if you're in compassion fatigue, can be compassion bankruptcy. That happens when we are not honest with ourselves to say, hey, look, I don't have any more to give right now. Doesn't mean you don't ever have any more to give forever and ever. But right now, in this particular area of compassion, I don't have any more to give because I'm in the process of recharging. And when you're willing to acknowledge that, then you're able to get into a place where you can recharge and start building your power back up or building your reserves back up. But if you ignore that, very much like the body, the mind will tell you when it's reached its limit, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. There's been plenty of times where I think any of us can relate to where we've been exhausted, tired, and we're going maybe on 2 hours of sleep one day and 3 hours of sleep the next day and an hour nap the next day. And at some point, the body says, okay, you think I'm playing with you. I'm gonna just cause you to faint and you'll wake up when I'm ready to wake up because I need rest. And the mind is a very similar thing where it will not, well, the mind does that, but the mind, when it comes to our compassion, will do the exact same thing. It will say, you know what? You can keep saying that you'll take on more, but I'm not going to take on more frustration because I'm burned out. And it'll click and you'll go from being that compassion fatigue, which you're already beyond fatigue, you're probably in exhaustion, to compassion bankrupt. And now you got to start all over at building your bank up. Just like with bankruptcy, you got to spend all that time reestablishing your credit. You got to spend all that time reestablishing your compassion. And in the interim is probably where you're most destructive, because last time I checked, people don't go into isolation while they're bankrupt in compassion to recharge their banks. And then there's another thing. The other thing is going back. I don't know why I'm on cell phones today, but going back to the cell phone component, there is a net gain of compassion. So again, if I have my phone turned off, powered down, and I plug it up to charge it, it's going to charge at its fastest possible rate. But if I have my phone plugged up and it's charging, but I'm using it because I'm talking on the phone or on video chatting, then it's not going to charge as fast. And it's actually, in some cases, if the charging source is not strong enough, it will die in the midst of me using it. So that is the other aspect, the net gain of compassion. Be intentional with your use of your compassion so that you're not burning it out while you're trying to refill it. The last thing that I have here for the fourth and final tool is find activities that recharge your compassion. And I actually broke this down into two different categories. The very first category being compassionate activities. So first off, we don't even often admit that we need to recharge our compassion. So what are some of the compassion activities that we can do? These are very general. They may not even resonate with you. However, overall, it's what you're passionate about. I am passionate about being on the first row week after week to help people and help them in the same way that I was helped when I was learning these tools and these traits. And as I still work to learn and hopefully one day master these tools and these traits. But compassionate activities can be something as simply as feeding the homeless, reading to children in libraries, or teaching your passion. Like, I'll put that back in there, boom, boom, teaching your passion. And there's a twofold result that you get from that. Number one, you get practice at compassion in general. Feeding the homeless is something that I've done before. And I can honestly tell you, it gave me a different perspective of appreciation for how these people are actually still surviving when you're out in the elements, especially being out here in Utah where it snows and you still see homeless people. And it's like, how are you living in the snow without shelter? Because I'm telling you, 28 degrees, 19 degrees, 7 degrees, and living outside in that's not a life that I want to live. And so it just gives you a different appreciation. It allows you, number one, to practice your compassion in general. And as Les Brown always says, practice doesn't make us perfect, it simply makes us better. And so if you can get better at compassion in one area of your life, inevitably that will bleed over into other areas of compassion into your life. The second fold of that is the gratification that you can help to restore your compassion reserves. And it may not be as much because, again, just like if you're using your phone, you're not charging as fast, but that gratification, that feeling of I contributed and I helped this person who was in need, or I read to this kid who doesn't have the ability to read and nobody at their home reads to them, or I taught them this skill set that I've been working on myself to implement daily. Those gratification moments and those things that, honestly, be honest, will stroke your ego and make you feel good about being compassionate, also double as a recharging effect for you as well. And then the other side of that is to, instead of just compassionate activities, going out and interacting with humans, is to take a moment in isolation. It's important that we have human interaction as humans. Like, that's important. They've actually deemed solitary confinement as cruel and unusual punishment. However, yet it's still, that's a whole other story. It's still in existence, but whatever. But we also need, we do need, though it's cruel and unusual punishment to be in there for a prolonged period of time, we do need those moments of solitude. It's important that we have just as much compassion for our internal environment as we do for our external environment. So going back to what Cousin Mo said, as far as about exercise, meditation, and the music, being able to filter and cleanse our internal environment is so important to making sure that you have the lubrication to interact with people on the external environment. So those are the 4 tools that I came up with. They're on the screen for you, clear as day. Use sympathy rather than absorption. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I think that's spelled correctly. Oh, absorption. Yeah, that's correct. Treat each experience as an individual opportunity. Acknowledge the signs of fatigue and find activities that recharge your compassion. So with that, if you're still rocking with me, then I'm really still rocking with you. Let me come back really quick. Are we back? There, I'm back. With that, I want to thank you guys for being on tonight with us. As I told you, it's going to go about an hour and a half. Look, I'm saving y'all about 2 minutes because I got to do some things. But I really appreciate you guys being here in the live chat tonight. Cousin Mo, again, I really appreciate you being on tonight and just being on fire about this topic, because that passion and that fire that you have, brother, it definitely showed. And I'm sure for those who are watching live or were watching live, and those who watch via the replay, they will, that passion and that fire will definitely catch to them, and that will resonate with them. So I want to thank you again for being on. And for those who contributed in the conversation, for those who checked in, I want to tell you, thank you guys for checking in. And letting us know that you're here. Other than that, we just be talking to ourselves, but we have great conversations too, Cousin Mo, so I'm okay with us just talking by ourselves sometimes. The next time that you will see the First Row live will actually be tomorrow. Our next live show will be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. It is the Wednesday Word, and the topic is keeping sight of your vision. It looks a little something like this: keeping sight of your vision. So if you want to know what that is about, you're going to have to tune in live. Be a part of it. Be a part of that conversation, because I think that we all have visions that we should start sharing and getting out there to expose. Because if we can expose it, then that holds us a little higher, at a higher level of accountability to making that vision or bringing that dream into the manifestation of reality. So there's that. And then the next thing is I do want to remind you, because we are actually running out of time on this exclusive offer. There's an exclusive offer. The author, Damian K. Rowe, he is my older brother, will be releasing his book, Modern Day Mentor. He actually extended for First Row viewers only. He extended his pre-order period. It actually ended for the general public back on February 28th, but he extended it through the end of March 31st. for first row viewers. So if you are interested in getting a pre-order form to pre-order your copy of Modern Day Mentor, request an order form at moderndaymentor@firstrow.com. Again, that's moderndaymentor@firstrow.com. And then, as always, we are a network that wants to connect with you. We want you to connect with us. So if you're going to connect with us, these are the ways that you would go about doing that. You can catch us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, all at First Row. We are happy to engage with you. We're happy to take topic ideas. If you do want to send in topic ideas, got to add that to the graphic. But if you want to send topic ideas, send that to topics@firstrow.com. If we use your topic, we will give you a shout out on that as far as the topic on that topic when we do it live. You know, maybe we'll get you some cool little First Row swag. We're working on that. So these are the ways that you would be able to get in touch with us. But other than that, that's pretty much it that we got for the night. As always, if you have not subscribed yet, please click the subscription button, click the bell so you can be notified when we are live on the First Row. Other than that, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. If you were here live tonight, share it. 10 people, share it with people who've never heard of the First Row. We want to get our audience base up, but we want to get our growth impact up as well. We want as many people as we can possibly influence and help to grow to get that, by getting this information. We want to get this information to them. So if you could help us by sending this to 10 people that you think it will resonate with them, that they need to hear it, do so. Because again, if you like this video, share it. And if you share it, like it, we're happy to engage with you in the live chat. We're happy to engage with you in the comments if you're watching via the replay up to the first week of the content being produced. But other than that, until the next time that we see you, one love, peace, and God bless.